The border of human space was not marked on any official galactic map. It did not need to be. Every species, every smuggler, every wandering captain in the galaxy knew where it was, not through signs or coordinates, but through the way the air in the bridge seemed to grow heavy when you got too close. The way sensors began returning strange readings, and the way every old spacer's voice dropped to a whisper when telling the stories. They called it the Forbidden Border, a line no alien dared to cross unless they were desperate, foolish, or seeking death. The alien exploration fleet under Captain Varel of the Corthon Dominion was neither desperate nor, in their own minds, foolish. They were here because their high command wanted proof that the humans' fearsome reputation was nothing but rumor. Varel stood tall at the command deck, his 4 black eyes scanning the void beyond the viewport. Myth, he said with a dismissive flick of his clawed hand. Tales told to keep lesser species in their place. The humans are primitive and hidden. He cannot hold back the Dominion forever. His crew exchanged uneasy glances. One wanted to argue with their captain, but the tension in the air was undeniable. Their scanners swept ahead into the darkness, picking up nothing but background radiation and the cold whispers of distant stars. Yet deep in the pit of their stomachs, those instincts honed by years of travel, they felt watched. The fleet drifted closer to the invisible border. It was said that human space was vast, full of resource-rich systems, strange energy fields, and technology stolen from long-dead civilizations. But no alien empire had ever mapped it. The few who claimed to have seen it spoke of ghostly shapes, moving through the void, of ships that appeared out of nowhere and vanished just as fast. Most of those witnesses were later found dead, their ships adrift with no signs of battle. On the bridge of the Dominion flagship, a faint beeping broke the silence. The sensor officer, a young Corthon barely out of training, stared at his screen. "Captain, I'm detecting something ahead, but it's gone now." Varel frowned. "Gone. Objects don't simply vanish." The officer shook his head. "I had it for less than a second. No reading on size or composition. Just a shadow." Another officer muttered under his breath, "The shadow of death," earning a sharp glare from the captain. Still, even Varel could not shake the unease settling into his bones. The border was close now. Stars seemed dimmer here, as though light itself feared to cross into human space. The emptiness beyond the invisible line looked no different from the rest of the void, yet it carried a weight, an unspoken warning. The ships of the Dominion fleet slowed. Their engines hummed at low power, ready to surge forward or retreat. At a moment's notice, the crew held their breath, as if making too much noise might attract unwanted attention. "We cross," Varel ordered at last, his voice hard. "History will remember this day. The day the Dominion proved the humans are nothing." Engines flared, and the ships drifted forward, crossing the line that no alien ship had dared cross. In decades, the first thing they noticed was the silence. Not the natural silence of space, but a deeper, heavier quiet that swallowed even the hum of their systems. All long-range communications went dead without a warning, without a spark of interference. Just an instant, complete blackout. The navigation displays flickered, struggling to keep a lock on their position. "What is happening?" Varel demanded, his claws digging into the armrest of his command chair. "Unknown," came the reply. "It's like the void here. Resists us." Before they could adjust, the shadow returned, not on the sensors this time, but in the viewport. At first it looked like a trick of the light, a dark patch against darker space. Then it moved. The crew stared in disbelief as the shape solidified, its outline sharp and unnatural. A ship, sleek, pitch black, without visible markings. No lights, save for a faint red glow tracing the edges of its hull, pulsing like the heartbeat of some living predator. It wasn't big by galactic standards, not the size of a battleship, yet something about it radiated power. It sat there, silent and unmoving, directly in their path. "Human," one officer whispered, and the words seemed to chill the bridge. The ship made no move to hail them, no attempt to display weapons or transmit warnings. It simply waited, blocking their way forward like a lone sentinel at the gate of a forbidden realm. Virel tried to mask his discomfort with anger. They dare to challenge the Dominion with one ship, signal them, demand they clear the path. The cum officer tapped the controls only to shake his head. No response. Can't even confirm if the signal is transmitting. Data hissed. Softly, almost like a whisper in an alien tongue. The crew shifted uneasily in their seats. The human ship remained still, its red glow steady, patient, and unblinking. Minutes passed like hours. Every second they waited, the oppressive silence seemed to grow heavier, pressing against their minds. Some swore they could feel eyes on them, though no windows or visible crew could be seen on the alien vessel. Finally, Virel gave the order. Advance slowly. Right. They will move. The Dominion fleet edged forward, keeping formation, their weapons charged, but not yet firing. The human ship did not move. It seemed to swell in the viewport as they drew closer, its whole surface absorbing every speck of light, giving the eerie impression that it was carved from the void itself. When they were almost within range to pass it, the human vessel vanished. Not a burst of speed, not a cloaking shimmer. One moment it was there. The next it was gone, as if erased from reality. Gasps filled the bridge. The sensor officer frantically scanned the area. Gone. No, wait. The human ship reappeared directly in front of them, even closer than before. No sound, no flash, no detectable movement. This time, the faint red glow around its edges pulsed faster, almost like a warning heartbeat. Virel's claws gripped the armrest so tightly that the metal creaked. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. This was no myth. This was no story told to frighten traitors. This was real, and it was watching them. The crew knew what the old story said, that those who met a human warship in the border zone rarely returned. Yet here they were, face with one, and it had not attacked. Not yet. The silence stretched on, until it felt like a living thing, coiled and ready to strike. Somewhere deep in the darkness of human space, something had noticed their trespass, and whatever rules the galaxy lived by did not apply here. The Dominion had crossed the line. Now they would learn what it meant. The human ship did not move, but its presence felt louder than a battle siren. It hovered there in the void, black as if carved from pure darkness, its faint red glow pulsing like the slow beat of a predator's heart. The Dominion fleet hung. In space before it, engines humming low, weapons charged but untouched. Captain Virel's voice was a tight coil of authority and unease. Hold position, he ordered, though every instinct screamed at him to either attack or retreat. His crew obeyed, their eyes locked on the silent vessel, waiting for it to make the first move. But it didn't. It simply stared, door whatever passed for staring nids. Presence pressing against the minds of the crew like the weight of deep water. Some officers shifted uncomfortably, glancing at their sensors, hoping for numbers and data to explain what their instincts already told them. This was no ordinary encounter. Minutes stretched. The cum officer tried again to send a signal, switching frequencies, modulating codes, even attempting the universal distress ping, but nothing went through. The moment their signals left the Dominion ship, they vanished, as if space itself swallowed them whole. It's not just blocking our transmissions, the officer whispered. It's eating them. Virel's jaw tightened. He ordered a tactical scan, but the sensors returned only static. No mass reading, no energy. Output, no whole composition, nothing. As far as their instruments were concerned, the human ship didn't even exist. They want us blind, muttered one of the senior gunners, his voice trembling. And they've succeeded. Then the red glow shifted. It began to pulse faster, in a rhythm too precise to be random. Some crew members swore they could hear it in their heads, a deep, slow thump, like the echo of an enormous drum. The lights on the Dominion bridge flickered. Panels dimmed and brightened in sync with the human ship's pulse. They're inside our systems, the chief engineer said, panic edging into his voice. No worse, they're not inside. They're the interference. As if to prove him right, the star field outside warped slightly, as though reality itself had taken a breath. Without warning, the human ship moved. Not with acceleration, not with the burn of engines, but but with impossible, jarring, instant relocation. One moment it was ahead of them, the next it was directly above their formation, then beside them, then beneath them, vanishing and reappearing in a sequence too fast to track. Each appearance came with a faint, bone-deep vibration, as though the void itself shuddered at its passing. The Dominion fleet's targeting systems tried to lock on, but the moment they began, the ship was gone again. "It's toying with us," whispered the sensor officer. Suddenly, the human vessel reappeared dead ahead, closer than ever before. The red glow flared once, then died entirely. For a breathless moment, it was pure darkness, an absence of light and form. Then a beam of blinding white light erupted from its underside. Not an attack, not heat or energy, but a scan so powerful the Dominion fleet's entire data systems froze. Every console, every screen went black. The only light on the bridge came from the cold, blinding ray that swept over them. And then as quickly as it began, it ended. The lights returned. Systems rebooted. The human ship was gone, not moved. Gone. Space lay empty before them, silent as before, the border stretching out behind them. "Where is it?" Varel demanded. No one had an answer. The fleet scanned. In every direction, but their instruments were as blind as before. Then, a whisper crackled through the coms, just one word. In a voice that was calm, cold, and unmistakably human, "Leave." The word echoed through the bridge, though it wasn't just sound. It was felt deep in the chest, in the mind, like a command given to the soul. Some crew members flinched. Others froze entirely, their hands gripping consoles without moving. Varel swallowed hard, his pride warring with the primal fear building inside him. "They think they can scare us," he muttered, but even he didn't sound convinced. The voice came again, softer this time, yet somehow more dangerous. "Last chance." Silence fell again, and for a long, heavy moment, no one spoke. The forbidden border was no longer just a legend. The crew now knew what lurked therein, that it had given them a choice. The Dominion fleet didn't retreat. Pride was a dangerous thing, and Captain Varel had plenty of it. He stood tall on the command deck, eyes locked on the empty void ahead. The human ship's warning, if that's even what it was, still echoed in his mind. But he forced the unease down. "They want us to run," he said, voice steady. "If we do, every sector will think we're afraid of a ghost. We stay." His crew exchanged nervous glances. Some nodded out of loyalty, others because they feared contradicting him. The fleet shifted formation, weapons primed. Dozens of warships, each bristling with enough firepower to level continents, positioned themselves in a battle net. The plan was simple. Anything that reappeared in their net would be obliterated instantly. Engineers diverted power to weapons, but shields shimmered to full capacity. The Dominion fleet was a wall of steel and energy, and Varel wanted to believe that would be enough. Then the temperature dropped. It wasn't the ship's life support, it was something deeper. It was an unnatural chill that seeped through the bulkheads and into their bones. The stars outside flickered, not dimmed flickered, as if reality itself stuttered. "Contact." Sensor officers shouted, but before he could finish, every ship's targeting systems lit up with alarms. Multiple readings. Multiple locations. The human ship was back, but not one. Dozens of identical sensor signatures appeared, surrounding the Dominion fleet in a perfect sphere. "They've brought reinforcements," one officer gasped. Varel's stomach twisted, but he forced a laugh. "It's a bluff. They can't multiply ships." "Fire on the nearest one." The order was given. Plasma beams and missile salvos roared into the void, streaking toward the nearest target. The explosions were bright and satisfying until the smoke cleared, revealing nothing. Not wreckage, not debris, nothing at all. The ships had been illusions. The crew barely had time to process it when the first real strike came. It was silent. No beam, no missile trail, just a single Dominion cruiser erupting in a blinding sphere of light before vanishing entirely, as if it had been erased from existence. The comm channels exploded with panicked voices. "We're under attack. I can't see them. They're inside the shields. One after another, Dominion ships vanished in bursts of impossible energy, each destruction accompanied by the faintest, bone-rattling hum, like the sound of an ancient machine waking up. On the bridge, Varel gripped the arm of his command chair. Track it. Track something. But the sensors remained blank. It was like fighting an invisible hand that could strike from anywhere. Then, in a sudden flash, the human ship appeared again close enough that its dark hull filled the viewport. The red pulse was back, but now it throbbed faster, almost like a heartbeat after a sprint. The ship didn't fire, didn't need to. Every Dominion console went black. Engines powered down. Life support flickered. The entire fleet hung in space, powerless, like prey caught in a predator's grip. On the comes, that same human voice returned, no louder than before, but infinitely more dangerous. You were warned. And this time there was no doubt in anyone's mind they weren't leaving alive. The first kill after the warning was almost merciful. Dominion destroyer, still drifting without power, simply imploded, folding in on itself, like it had been sucked into a tiny, invisible hole. There was no explosion, no scattering of debris. Absence. It was gone, erased from reality. For a heartbeat, the survivors almost thought it had been spared, teleported somewhere. But the absence was absolute. The crew was gone. The ship was gone. They were gone. Then the real slaughter began. The human warship didn't fire in volleys or unleash a single massive weapon. It hunted. It picked ships off one at a time each. Kill different, each one worse than the last. A battleship's armor peeled away in layers as if some unseen hand were stripping it bare. Another vessel's reactors suddenly overloaded, the blast vaporizing it in seconds. One cruiser's hull simply dissolved into black dust, the particles scattering like ash in the vacuum. What terrified the Dominion crew most was not the death sit, was the silence. Battle chatter from the humans. No taunts, no screams from their victims. Every comm channel was dead except for the occasional faint hum that preceded each kill. The enemy was so precise, so methodical, that it felt less like a battle and more like an extermination. The Dominion fleet tried to scatter, but it didn't matter. The human ship would vanish, reappear beside a target, and kill it instantly before moving on. It didn't chase. It didn't miss. It simply appeared where it needed to be, always one step ahead. One captain in the surviving wing broke formation entirely, activating an experimental jump drive to escape. The bridge crew barely had time to cheer when the stars around them blurred then. Froze. They were back in the exact same spot they had jumped from. The human ship floated directly in front of them, close enough for every scar and burn mark on its hull to be visible. For the first time, a new sound came over the single, slow knock on metal, like someone tapping on a coffin. The next moment, the ship disintegrated into a fine mist of molten fragments. Minutes passed. Dominion fleet was no longer a fleet, just a scattering of burning wrecks, drifting corpses, and terrified survivors trapped in powerless vessels. The human ship drifted among them like a shark among wounded fish. Every few moments, its crimson pulse would flare, and another ship would die. On the bridge of his crippled flagship, Captain Varel's hands shook for the first time in decades. Why? He whispered to himself. Not to his crew, not even to the humans, just to the void. And as if it had heard him, the human voice came again, final and absolute. No alien crosses into human space uninvited. Out, and the killing stopped. The survivors were left to drift alive, but marked. The message was clear. They would carry the story home. The survivors limped home like ghosts. The journey back to Dominion space should have taken 3 days. But the crippled ships took more than 2 weeks. Hull breaches had been sealed with crude patches. Life support was barely functional. Some crews had resorted to rationing oxygen. By the time the first vessel crossed into a Dominion-controlled sector, more than half its original crew was dead not from battle wounds, but from starvation, cold, despair. When the survivors finally arrived at the Dominion capital, they weren't met with medals or sympathy. They were met with suspicion. The High War Council demanded to know how an entire battle group, one of the Dominion's most powerful fleets, had been destroyed by a single human warship. The council chambers, carved from obsidian and lit by floating crystals, felt colder. Then the void, Admiral Korath, who had stayed behind in reserve and had not seen the slaughter firsthand, questioned Captain Varel directly. "You expect us to believe," Korath said, voice low and full of contempt, "that a single Terran vessel could wipe out 20 Dominion warships in minutes? That is not war. It is a story for children." "It is no story," Varel replied, his voice hoarse. "I saw it. We all saw it. The shipno, the thing, was unlike anything in our records. It did not fight. It hunted. It hesitated, searching for words. It made decisions. Not tactical ones. Personal ones." The chamber erupted with mutters. Several council members exchanged glances. One asked, "And yet you returned? Why spare you?" "I don't know," Varel said. "But before it stopped, it spoke to me. To all of us." He repeated the message word for word. The chamber fell silent. Some dismissed it as psychological warfare. Others called it a fabrication meant to cover a humiliating defeat. But a small, sharp minority, veteran admirals who had fought humans decades ago, didn't speak at all. They simply stared into the distance, as if remembering something they had tried to forget. Soon, rumors spread beyond the council. Dockworkers whispered about the ghost ship in human space. Traders spoke of red lights in the dark. Civilian colonies near the human frontier began reporting strange sensor echoes, as if something vast and unseen was watching them from just beyond their borders. Within weeks, paranoia gripped the Dominion. Some demanded an immediate strike into human territory to prove Dominion strength. Others urged total withdrawal from the human frontier, warning that they had awakened something far worse than a conventional enemy. The Empire's propaganda channels struggled to maintain control, especially when intercepted communications revealed that multiple smaller fleets had also failed to return from human space in the past. A few years by the time the Council finally agreed to investigate, something strange had already begun happening along the border. Patrols sent to scout the frontier stopped reporting not in battles, not in distress calls, just silence. Entire crews erased without a trace, just as the first fleet had been. Except this time, there were no survivors to carry the warning. It was no longer a question of if the humans were dangerous. The question was whether the Dominion had already waited too long to act. The largest armada the Dominion had ever assembled crossed into human space under a banner of grim determination. 500 warships, each bristling with weapons, their hulls shimmering with advanced shielding. This was not a probing force, it was an overwhelming hammer meant to smash any resistance. Every soldier aboard had been told the same thing. "We end this today." For the first day, nothing happened. Sensors showed empty space, stars cold and silent. Some crews began to think the humans had fled, perhaps retreating deeper into their territory. But the veterans kept glancing over their shoulders, checking radar again and again, as if expecting a shadow to appear. On the second day, the shadow came. It didn't arrive like a normal ship. It wasn't detected by long-range scanners, nor did it decloak in the usual sense. It was simply there, hanging in space where moments before there had been nothing. No warp signature, no energy spike, just present. It was the same ship that survivors had described: black, angular, featureless except for the faint red glow pulsing along its hull like a heartbeat. But here in the vastness of space, surrounded by hundreds of Dominion vessels, it looked small. The Dominion fleet's flagship hailed it, broadcasting a message in every known frequency. "This is the Dominion High Fleet. You have violated the borders of the Empire. Power down your systems and surrender, or face destruction." The ship did not respond. Instead, the red glow along its hull brightened. The Dominion's admirals mistook this as a charging sequence and ordered all ships to open fire. Thousands of energy blasts, torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles surged toward the lone vessel. The void lit up in brilliant flashes, then dimmed almost instantly. Every weapon fired had simply missed. It's not because the ship moved, but because reality itself seemed to shift around it. Shots that had been on target simply bent away, vanishing into nothing. Then the voice came. Cold, measured, terrifyingly calm. You have crossed into human space without invitation. You were warned. Before the Dominion could react, the black ship began to move not with the slow, calculated maneuvers of a warship, but with impossible speed. It sliced through the armada, and ships began to vanish. Not explode, not burn, just disappear, as if erased from existence. In less than a minute, over 100 Dominion vessels were gone. Panic spread through the fleet. Admirals screamed. Contradictory orders, some calling for retreat, others for a desperate charge. It didn't matter. The Black Ship's attacks were surgical, targeting command ships first, then isolating and wiping out stragglers. When the flagship itself was targeted, Admiral Korath finally understood. It wasn't a ship at all. The way it moved, the way it warped space, the way it seemed to choose its kills, it was something alive. Not a machine piloted by humans, but a human creation given will, weapon with a mind. The last thing Korath saw before the flagship systems went dark was the black vessel slowly turning toward him, the red glow intensifying. The voice returned, speaking not just to him, but broadcasting to the entire Dominion Empire. No alien crosses into human space uninvited. Those who try do not return. Then there was only silence. Days later, fragments of wreckage drifted. Back across the border burned, twisted remains of ships that once carried thousands. No bodies, no black ship. Just an empty expanse where the Dominion's greatest fleet had vanished forever. From that day on, no Dominion captain dared to cross into human territory. The border became more than a line on a map, became a grave, marker. And somewhere, deep in the endless dark, the black ship waited.